Hi, I'm Carrie, and today I'm going to be talking about my winter knitting plans. But before getting into all of my exciting winter plans, I wanted to go back and look at how I did for my fall knitting plans so I can kind of learn from what I did in the fall and make a more realistic plan for this winter. So I have my notes here for everything that I had planned to do and how I actually did. So I had planned to make 4 adult sweaters, 1 pair of socks, 1 accessory set, and 3 toddler-sized sweaters. So for the 4 sweaters that I had planned to make, this was a Tremont cardigan, quotidian tee, a plinth sweater, and a Rockmill cardigan, which is a new design that I'm working on now. And I will say right now, I did not get to all of these things. So I did not even start my Tremont cardigan, and I am planning to push that to spring plans. I don't think it's really something that I'm going to be wanting to work on in the winter. So that's a later thing. I did knit the quotidian tee and completed that. I also knit my plinth sweater, completed that. That was a really fast project and took me only 3 weeks. Super pleased with that result. And then for my Rockmill cardigan design, I got maybe about 50% of the way through that. So that is still a work in progress for me. For my accessories, I ended up knitting all of the things that I had planned to make. So I knit 1 pair of socks, my Wheatley socks, and I knit 2 fingerless mitts. I did just want to share a quick note on those fingerless mitts that I made. Those are a new design. They're called Rockmill Mitts, and the pattern is out now. Here are the fingering weight version. These are the worsted weight version. So if you're looking to knit a pair of fingerless mitts, either as a quick last minute gift or as part of your own winter knitting plans, just to keep your hands warm, these are a great option. So be sure to check out that pattern link below. There's a discount code there as well that is good for the first week of the pattern release. So I had initially planned to make a fingerless mitt and hat set, but ended up knitting fingerless mitts and 2 yarn weights, and I think I'm going to take the hat and move that into my winter plans. And then for my toddler knitting that I had planned to knit 3 sweaters, and what actually happened was knitting about a quarter of 1 sweater, and then also knitting a toddler hat and toddler mittens that were not originally on my plans. So all in all, I knit about 2.5 adult sweaters, a quarter of a kid sweater, 2 adult accessories, and 2 toddler accessories. So something that I didn't consider when I was making all of my fall plans was that I still had 3 projects still on the needles outside of any of the new fall projects. So those were still in progress. They were also all fingering weight, all sweaters, 2 adult sweaters, and 1 toddler sweater. And I didn't finish the last of those until mid-October. So that definitely took up some of my time. So my final stats are actually 2.5 adult sweaters with 1 work in progress completion, a quarter of a kid sweater plus a work in progress completion, and then those accessories. So I definitely did do a lot, and like the total equivalent is fairly similar to what I planned, maybe a slight overestimate, but within the general range. So I definitely need to keep that in mind for this winter because I do have 2 carryover knits. I still have that sweater in progress for myself and a sweater in progress for my child. And then I also have some like non-knitting holiday projects that I also want to work on. And then in addition to that, I also have some organizational projects that I want to do. In my fall plans video, I had mentioned 2 big organizational projects that I wanted to tackle. One was like a full, catalog, well, not necessarily cataloging, but like a full review and reorganization of my yarn stash. And then the second one was a reorganization of how I store my sweaters. So I did do that one. I did do the sweater storage overhaul, but I have not really gotten far on my yarn organization plan, and I definitely want to be able to complete that during this winter season, especially since I have some time off of work between Christmas and New Year's. So I want to take advantage of that time, especially on the days that I'm off of work and daycare is still open. I'm going to have more time available on those days and want to be able to kind of tackle those bigger organizational projects. All of that being said, going into the first quarter of next year, I'm expecting work to be incredibly busy, so I am likely going to have a little bit less knitting time than I probably did this fall. So I do need to keep that in mind, especially with the amount of brain power that's going to be required in these projects. And so I'm thinking that I need to incorporate some more easy knitting, stockinette in the round, or at least just stockinette, that sort of thing, so that I can just, you know, come home from my day of work, be able to turn off my brain and just knit. That's a quick recap on all of my fall knitting progress, and I will get into my winter plans next, though did want to know I'm probably going to record that on another day, just because I still kind of need to get my thoughts together on what projects I want to make, what's going to make sense based on like what I have going on at work and the things that I want to make and the yarns that I have. I need to, you know, gather my thoughts before going into that. I have an idea of what I want to get done, especially because I am carrying over some of those works in progress, and I have like an older work in progress that I want to bring back onto my needles. But in terms of my new projects, I still need to figure out exactly what I want to work on, especially for sweaters for me. I think I have like my accessories and my kid projects all laid out, but haven't decided on all of my sweaters yet. We're here on a new day, and I've taken some time to sit down and think about the projects that I want to work on in the winter, and like what yarns I want to use and what's actually going to be realistic, both from like a number of project perspective, as well as like how complex the project is. As I mentioned, this next year is going to be quite busy in my day job, especially like that first quarter of next year. So essentially like the entire winter season is going to be really, really busy for us. So I kind of need to keep that in mind with the projects that I am going to be working on. So I definitely am going to continue working on my current works in progress, and the works in progress that I currently have on the needles are my Rockmill cardigan and my little Bryce cardigan for my daughter. And then I'm also bringing back onto the needles a quotidian tee, a long sleeve version that I cast on a couple of years ago, and I'm going to bring that back onto the needles. So those three are solidly in my winter knitting plans. So for additional projects on top of that, this is still probably a pretty over ambitious list. But we'll at least get started on these, see where I get, and also like I may not even get started on every single project that I'm listing here. So I have a couple of categories for my new cast on projects. I'm going to have a couple of sweaters, a couple of accessories for me, and then projects for my kid. So for new projects, since I currently already have 2 adult sweaters in progress, I'm going to only add on 2 new sweaters onto the list. So the first sweater that I'm thinking about knitting is the Champagne Cardigan by PetiteKnit. I will say it's been a really long time since I've knit a sweater from another designer. So as a designer myself, I'm often working on my own things, but a lot of my own things end up being new designs, which end up having a lot of background work, as in I'm doing all of the design work, I'm figuring out all of the math, I'm doing all of the things in addition to actually like knitting the sweater. And even if I'm like knitting one of my own sweaters, a lot of things that I've designed in the past are like, you know, have texture and cables and that sort of thing. So what I'm looking for here, and why I chose the Champagne Cardigan, is I'm looking for something simple. So the Champagne Cardigan is like an all-over stockinette cardigan, worked top-down raglan, has like 1x1 rib trim, and then a vertical button band. So I've actually never knit a vertical button band before, so I thought it would be, you know, an interesting new thing to try on this while having like a relatively straightforward, simple, all-over stockinette thing that can kind of just be my mindless knitting and also create like a wardrobe staple piece. PetiteKnit is of course well known for creating wardrobe staples. I've never knit a project of hers before. I've never used one of her patterns, so I'm kind of excited to see, you know, what the hype is. Well, I know what the hype is, but she designs really beautiful things that people are excited to wear, and I mean that's why I gravitated towards this pattern as well. The yarn that I'm planning to use is Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in the slate gray color. So this is just going to be a, you know, gray wardrobe staple cardigan. So nothing super like special or exciting or anything like that, but something that's gonna definitely get worn a lot. So that is the plan for this one, a Champagne Cardigan by PetiteKnit using this Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino. The next sweater that I want to make is another version of my Rockmill cardigan that I'm currently designing. So once I like fully get through the pattern writing and like working through my first sample, doing another run through it just kind of like as a knitter. So hopefully, you know, once I've gotten through all of the pattern writing stuff, it's not going to be super complicated, especially it's a drop shoulder style. A lot of the knitting is going to be straight. Of course, like there is some shaping in like in the underarms, but it's not very complex. It's knit purl patterning. So it's something that won't be super complex from a brain space perspective. So for the yarn that I was showing here for the champagne cardigan, I was initially thinking about using this for another Rockmill cardigan, but when I used the same yarn for making my Rockmill mitts, the gauge that I get is definitely a worsted weight gauge. So I was just thinking based on the like put up of the yarn, it might be able to play in the DK space, but for how I knit, this is definitely sitting solidly in the worsted category. So so this is going to be a worsted sweater, and I need to find something else for that Rockmill cardigan. So I don't currently have, I don't think, any DK weight sweater quantities. So I'm either going to have to find a sweater quantity that I have enough fingering weight that I could hold double, which I might be able to do with leftover yarns, or alternately, I do have a couple of sport weight sweater quantities that I could hold with Mohair. So my first sample that I'm knitting is a sport weight held with Mohair. So that would be totally in the same kind of category. I would just have to then, you know, go out and buy Mohair to go with whatever sport weight that I use. So I think I have two sport weight sweater quantities. I have a gray Cascade 220 Superwash Sport, and then I also have this Mrs. Crosby Loves to Play Wild Huckleberry colorway. And this, I believe this is a discontinued yarn, and also it is purple, and purple kind of is no longer really in my like standard wardrobe color arena. I do really like purple. I think it's a super pretty color, but it's just not something that I'm like, it's just not a color that I'm really consistently wearing anymore. That being said, if I was layering it with Mohair, adding something like darker, moodier, maybe even like towards the red space, potentially could be a way to turn something purple, which is not really currently in my color palette, could turn it to something that I would actually wear a lot. So I may have to play with like layering with Mohair. I don't have a ton of colors of Mohair just like floating around, but I could see if, you know, even just like layering it with a black Mohair, which I do have some black Mohair, how I feel about something that's like darkening it up. Like, is that enough? Do I need to also like change the color tone? I do like a burgundy with something like this. So I'm not 100% sure on what exactly I want to do for the yarn for a second Rockmill cardigan. And if I'm honest, I'm not entirely sure if I will actually get to that project. I don't necessarily need to knit a second sample for a Rockmill cardigan. I like knitting one is fine for getting through a design project, but I thought it would be fun to kind of like represent a different color and also a different stitch pattern in the samples. Because the pattern is going to come with 6 stitch pattern options, it would be fun to show more than one option in the pattern photos. That is all of the sweaters that I am planning to make this winter because, as I mentioned, I already have several sweaters still on the needles, so I feel like adding 2 more brings me to 4 adult sweaters in total, and that seems like a lot for a 3-month period. We're gonna leave it at that for sweaters. And now we're gonna move into accessories for me. I'm going to knit 4 accessories during this winter time frame, and 2 of them are going to be the same thing. So as I mentioned earlier, I designed my Rockmill mitts, and those are released now, but I had initially planned to make a hat companion to go with them. So I did not have really enough time to get to that this fall season. So we're going to do that this winter, especially now that heading into winter, like this is the time of year that you need hats. So I will be making matching hats to go with the mitts that I designed. So the fingering weight hat is going to be in these yarns here, Knitting for Olive Merino, which is on the top, and then Untold Mohair. They go really nicely together. Both of these are super beautiful yarns. And then the worsted weight one is going to be Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino in the slate green colorway. So very beautiful also. I am excited about both of these, especially the fingering weight mohair option, because I usually wear a heavier weight hat, like DK weight or above, to stay warm enough in the winter time. But I think it would be really nice to try out a fingering weight hat, but adding in mohair to kind of like fill in the spaces between the fingering weight yarn and provide that extra warmth, but not providing additional like bulk on my head. So trying something lightweight, but hopefully still super warm. And yeah, haven't done it before, so we're gonna see how that goes. Or I don't know if that's necessarily going to be like what I like for my climate here. It does get pretty cold in Ohio, but since I'm gonna be making two, I have a fingering weight one and I'm gonna be making a worsted weight one as well. I can see like what I actually like to wear better. And yeah, everyone has different climate, different preferences, so it will be fun to provide both of those options, just like I'm doing for the fingerless mitts. The next accessory that I'm planning on making are a pair of Wisp slippers, and I'm going to make these in Swish Bulky. This is like such a squishy yarn from Knit Picks. I absolutely adore this color. I mean, I clearly have like a color theme here, but I had purchased this yarn to knit a pair of Wisp slippers. I don't know, I think like shortly after I made the original pattern. I just haven't gotten to it. So this is the year that I finally want to actually get to knitting another pair of these slippers. It is such a fun pattern. It has like twisted stitch details, but it's bulky weight, so it works up super quickly. You just start with a little tab at the back, pick up around, do a little bit of heel shaping, work flat for a little bit, join in the round. It's just like a really fun and fast project that has a really beautiful result. So I am excited to actually do this. I think this is going to be something that I cast on maybe like in the between Christmas and New Year's period, or maybe like right after New Year's, just something as like a little cozy treat for myself, in something that's like, you know, a small package. So not an overwhelming, well, not that sweaters are really overwhelming cast-ons, but like it can be if they're bottom up, but you know, just like a quick, simple treat that has just tiny little phases that are fun to complete. So you get the little tab done, then you're like, oh, I'm just gonna pick up around the edges, then you're just gonna do the heel shaping. It's just one of those projects that kind of keeps you going. And I think that's gonna be a really good thing for me, especially once I get into that like January, very busy at work kind of timeline. And then the last accessory that I want to make are a pair of socks by Summerly Knits. I haven't 100% decided on which sock pattern of hers that I want to make, but I'm between two. I either want to make the Cider House socks, which has like some stripy ribbing at the top and then cables in the middle, and it's like color blocky and really cute, or one of the socks from the wide rib sock set. And again, it's like, you know, stripy and color blocky and cute. Like everything that Summerly does is like color blocked and cute. I totally get why everyone is knitting her socks. They're so beautiful. She has such great color sense. And I have a lot of leftover yarns, and I thought that this would be a great way to use some of my sock leftovers, is doing like a fun color blocky stripy sock. And by knitting someone else's pattern, that means I don't have to think about like what to do. Someone else will have done the work for me, and I can just like have fun knitting a sock and not need to think about it at all. So I'm like not sure exactly what leftover yarns I am planning to use, but I assure you I have plenty of leftover sock yarn to choose from. I have been knitting socks for a very long time, for like almost as long as I've been knitting. So I have, you know, 10 plus years of, or probably closer to 15 years of sock yarn leftovers. So I will have tons of options to choose from, and that'll just be something that I need to work through at some point, is like putting together my color pairings, making sure that I have enough for like the larger solid color sections for either of the options that I end up choosing, and then filling in the rest with some smaller quantities of like, you know, just tiny bits of sock yarn that I have. I'm very excited to have a fun little color matching project to do at some point. This is not currently the time to take that on. I do think that like once I get through the holidays, once I kind of start to get into the swing of the heavy workload period at work, casting on a relatively simple, straightforward pair of socks with fun colors will be a great way to keep me motivated on my knitting. Last up are the toddler projects. So I did not get to a ton of the toddler projects that I had initially planned for the fall. I did finish up one work in progress sweater, and I started another sweater, and I also did knit a toddler hat and toddler mittens set. So I definitely need to knit my daughter another hat, and I need to knit her more mittens because she currently only has the one hat and one set of mittens. And I know that at some point they're probably going to get lost. So we need to have some backups ready. So I'm planning to just knit her another classic rib beanie like I did the last time, using some DK weight that I have floating around, or alternately again using fingering held double, so no solid plans for that. And then knitting a pair of mittens, again doing the same kind of thing that I did last time. I modified my Cardigan Mitts pattern, adjusting that pattern to just be like toddler size by using the worsted weight numbers, using the smallest size. I can link the episode where I talked about this more in detail below if you're interested in seeing my toddler mitten modifications. For those mittens though, I might also make them fingerless mitts instead, because she often will just want to take her mittens off because she wants to eat a snack. Or I can modify it further to just be a flip top mitten, so we can like have the mitten available and still be able to, you know, flip the top down and then have fingers available to eat snacks with, because of course as a toddler snacks are very, very important. So we'll see what I do there. Maybe I'll just knit two pairs, one as a fingerless, one as a flip top, see what she likes between the full mitten, the flip top mitten, the fingerless mitt. All of these are really tiny projects that go super quickly, so it'd be totally feasible to knit all of these options. The last toddler project that I want to knit is another cardigan, since I already have one cardigan on the needles and it is like a, you know, textured, cabled, more thinking involved kind of cardigan. I want to go the complete opposite direction. I want to knit a simple stockinette cardigan that I don't have to think about, and that means I'm going to be knitting another designer's pattern again, and I am going back to PetiteKnit because she makes great basics, so that's where we're going. I am going to knit an Eva Cardigan Junior, which is a basic stockinette with rib trim cardigan. This one has 7 sleeves and I think it'll be really cute. I am going to knit that in Flora Adora fibers. This is the soft sage colorway and it's the BFLDK. I had, I believe, shared this in my fall plans video with basically like unattached project plans associated with it, but just like I wanted to knit a cardigan out of it. So now's the time to actually knit a cardigan out of it, and I found a pattern that's going to be cute and simple and something that I don't really have to think about a lot, which for, as I said, the busy work time that we're heading into for my day job is going to be really, really important for me to just have projects that I can pick up, not really need to think about, and just have a rewarding knit that either I will love to wear or my daughter will love to wear at the end of the day, and not have any kind of admin or background or design, any of that stuff that I normally have to think about for my own designs. So I can just push that all to the wayside and just have fun knitting something. Thank you so much for tuning in today while I chat about my winter knitting plans. Again, this is probably an overambitious list. I'm probably not going to get to it all, but you know, when do we ever get to 100% of our plans? The nice thing is to sit down, come up with a strategy of things that you're excited to knit on, and like put yarns and patterns together so you're just kind of prepared. Especially for me, where like I do have a lot of other stuff going on. I have a day job, I also design, I have a toddler at home, I have to keep on top of my house. So if I have these like pre-planned things that I can just be like, let me go back to my list that I already decided on, it's really nice to have that there to just be like, this is the next thing that I'm going to work on. Yes, I already made that decision. I don't have to make another decision. So I'm very excited to have this list put together that I can just refer back to. I'm very excited about all of these projects. I like want to have all of these in my wardrobe or available for my daughter to wear, and I have a lot of pretty yarns that I'm excited to work with. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos. I release a podcast every couple of weeks and occasionally share fun plan things like this. In the new year, I also have plans to share my closet sweater storage thing that I had done, so I'm planning to make a video on that. And when I eventually get through my yarn storage situation, I'm also hoping to share kind of what that overhaul looks like as well. You can always find me on Ravelry and Instagram as CARRYKNITS, and I'll see you next time.